Most entrepreneurs are looking to amplify their impact through their work, whether as a speaker, a composer, or an author. With the proliferation of accessible media tools, creators now have broader avenues to disseminate their messages to diverse audiences and organizations.
Aalia Lanius
embodies this dual role, serving as the COO of a media law firm while also founding a nonprofit media company dedicated to social awareness as an author. So stay tuned for an engaging interview with a captivating story you won't want to miss.
This podcast is brought to you by DJ Works Media, with resources and ideas for you at mid-career or halftime of life. Check out our online courses where we want you to not only start, but finish. Books available in all versions, and songs available for immediate download with sheet music and instrumental accompaniment tracks. Our musicals are family-friendly with great music that's memorable and inspiring. Sign up at goalsforyourlife.com/newsletter for weekly updates. Now to our episode.
Everyone here. Hello, everyone. I'm so excited to have, I want to make sure I've got this, Aalia Lanius. So I've got it right now. I told her I can mispronounce almost anything. It is such a pleasure to have you here today. And you have such a story, an amazing story that I want you to share, first of all. And I did a little intro, but welcome. Thank you for joining us.
And thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. Always a beautiful thing when I get to see a beautiful face in the middle of my crazy day. So I appreciate that.
Yes, it's very, very fun. Yeah. Well, I'd love you to give a little bit of your background, because you were literally homeless at the age of 14, and you just pulled yourself up to launch your first company, successful company, at the age of 25, and of course, all the education that took. And why don't you give a little of that background and about that journey?
Oh, I appreciate that. And yeah, it sounds so simple, right? I was homeless at 14 and then jumped. It definitely was not that simple. And I hit some bumps and have some bruises from along the way. But to first answer, how did I end up homeless at 14? I came from an amazing family, but also very conservative. And I was what a lot of people might relate to as what was considered the black sheep. I questioned authority. I was independent. And funny enough, as my family had taught me to be, my grandfather always said, be a leader, not a follower, right? So the minute I didn't conform to certain things, I was cast out. And, our family was quite strict. If you wanted to leave, there was the door, but don't come back. And they weren't playing, And so I ended up being on my own as of 14 years old and responsible for providing for myself. That wasn't easy to do, but I got through it. I have to say, despite bumps and bruises, I'm very grateful. And along that, I always was able to capitalize on my ability to be resourceful. We talk about generational differences. And from a very early age, I was always out there doing things, whether it was fundraising for the homeless or, doing things in my community creatively. I just, I wasn't afraid to talk to people. So I really was able to get out there quite early and learn how to sell, learn how to do business, or make business happen. And when I learned to do that for myself was about the time I was 22. And I started my first business at 22 and launched my first company at 25. And that was because, and I'll say this, I wasn't going to let anybody else determine my ceiling, Deborah. I was really...
Wow.
And I think that that's what's great about certain industries, which is why I kind of started off in the entertainment business, is because as a promotional, working in advertising and promotional and marketing for music artists, was that you grew as quickly as you were willing to work hard. If you were willing to put in that elbow grease and get it done, then you were going to succeed. And that is what I found to be true for myself. And I mean that very honestly. And again, it's not to say that I didn't have bumps, and, even in owning a business that early, I obviously still made mistakes, but that's the beautiful thing is you learn through your progress to fail forward. And you learn that every mistake is an opportunity to learn and to grow and say, okay, maybe I shouldn't do that next time. And for me, that's genuinely, and my ability to never give up. I have to say, for people that identify with myself, they will know we're incredibly resilient. And to be resilient, it's not only just about thriving in a place where you are absolutely supposed to fail, but it's being open and willing to grow. So I've always been about educating myself, being around smarter people than myself. If I was the smartest one in the room, then I might have been in the wrong room at times, because that is how you grow, right? So that's kind of where it started. And I'll pass it back to you, because hopefully that gives you a little bit of insight.
It sure does. And I love one of the big ones that you said, that you never give up, and persistence is one of my secret weapons. Yeah, it's just a lot of people quit way too soon, don't they? Or they don't revise enough to, just kind of tinker with it to kind of change the equation a little bit. And then definitely just don't give up, just keep going. Yeah. So that's a great story. So you're the black sheep. Okay, so that's explains a lot. Explains your tenacity. Yeah, that's a part of that. So, well, you are part of a law firm, and you went to, you are not, from what I got on your bio, you're not really practicing law, but you're the COO of this, which is Convergence Media Law. And it really caught my attention because, I'm a content creator, of course, in the arts as well, because I have a lot of music out, musicals. I've got a lot of stuff out, just a lot of content. And it's very important to protect our intellectual property, and books as well. I mean, it's all of that is part of our intellectual property. So, and this is big for you. Media is all a part of that. And you're an author as well. So can you explain what you do in that law firm, and how you manage projects, and what your goal is? And especially, we're going to get into AI a little bit too, and just kind of what you do as a COO.
I love that. And I appreciate that. And yes, I am actually, technically I'm part owner. My husband is the founder of Convergence Media Law, and we are both executive producers. He started off as an independent attorney, opened a firm, and we have grown. I officially came on this year as COO and CCO, Chief Creative Officer. So to answer what I do as far as supporting the firm, first of all, I make sure that the operations aspect, I make sure that our staff is properly, I'm familiar with, I've been running businesses since for over 25 years now. So I know HR laws. Some people are really good at doing business, but they don't understand business, right? They're really great hard workers. So as the COO, I make sure that our operations are on point. And then I'm also protecting liabilities, things like that. The CCO part of my position is something I think you would enjoy, because, a lot of people come to us wanting us to help develop their projects. Sometimes people are coming to us to open our networks for financial support, because we do actually provide and raise capital to, either it's money we've deployed from our own, or it's money that we're raising to assist filmmakers to make a film. And so we get approached with a lot of projects. As an executive producer and a CCO, I can look at scripts, and I can look at the budget, and I can determine if there's actual synergy there, right? I can determine by how many locations, how many people are in this script, how many countries are you wanting us to be in, how many extras do we need, all of these things. And as you can imagine, during COVID, that was definitely a big deal.
Yes.
But looking at a project, not just with the creative hat, because we want to empower incredible stories. But sometimes you have people that have projects that still need a bit of fine tuning, because there's still a disconnect in what you're imagining to be, and then the financial capability of actually executing that. And as people who are investors ourselves, and have, we bring investors to the table as well, we want to protect them. We want to make sure that, you get to be part of making a movie, but that you're also going to be made whole on that actual investment, whether, it's equity or whether it's debt. So I get the fun job of sometimes telling people, it's a pass. And sometimes I get the fun job of telling people, hey, we're very interested in your project. We'd love to come on board. We'd love to see if there's something that we can do here for you. My husband's in it. We've been pretty successful. Our firm has represented over 40 films just since 2017.
Wow.
And that's pretty incredible considering we've had a pandemic as well as a major shutdown to our industry because of the WGA strikes and the SAG strikes. So we are very good at what we do and very grateful to say that. I don't mean to say this with any cockiness or arrogance, because it's not that, but it's just when you've been in the business as long as we have, and then you start to understand things, you can more readily look at projects and see what's doable and what's not, if the value is really there. So that's what I get to do. And so evaluate scripts and things like that with our team and just kind of make those decisions moving forward.
How fun. What a great job. I'm sure it's very encompassing in your your thoughts in your mind all the time as you're reading. And but if you've gone to law school, you've read a lot anyway.
Yes,
so,
yes. But you are right. I do not practice. I leave all that to my husband.
Right.
But it's great to have a legal acumen. I have to encourage people to understand you don't have to go to law school and then just be an attorney, because that's the difference. You can be a lawyer and have graduated and not practice. That's the difference. But it makes a great business person when you're able to understand the legal jargon. If everyone could understand the Black's Dictionary, which is, that dictionary, then we would be a lot more savvy in the contracts that we engage in day to day. So I love that part.
Right.
But yeah, you know what I mean? Like that's something that I always add to people. Don't think you have to go and practice law to have a benefit from understanding the legal ways that we do everyday business.
Yeah, I think it's great. I mean, I've had to study copyright law and all of those, with all of that, and gone to many things. My husband always told me I should have been an attorney, but we have a son who's an attorney, so that I figured that was enough.
Good points when you're when you make good points.
Yeah, we were. He was the reason I quit homeschooling. I mean, we were like this. So very smart, wonderful. I love him to death, but he was very, very quick. So anyway, well, let's move on because you started this nonprofit, which is very admirable, because starting a nonprofit and keeping it going, it's a lot of work. It's a whole lot of work. And so you've founded a nonprofit called UnSugarCoated. I love the name, UnSugarCoated Media, the 501(c)(3), but it focuses on social awareness. And I kind of wanted to know what you meant by social awareness. And so on its website, it's you're kind of approaching the things that are really prevalent right now with suicide, divorce, financial struggles, addiction, and other social issues that really need to be approached. So why don't you talk a little bit about that, how you went ahead about doing that and why?
Thank you. Well, first of all, UnSugarCoated, and I glossed over a lot in our, in the first part of our conversation. But I've been through a lot of trauma as a result of definitely the things I've gone in my life, and some things, starting from childhood, and as many people have. I don't say that to make myself distinct, but at the same token, for other people to know, I think I want to be that champion that lets people know you can go through trauma and get back up. The trauma does not define you. So when it came to me, it started with me. I started writing books. I'm a novelist. I started writing stories, and each story, I wanted it to have a social message at its core. I wanted to be unsugar-coated for the first time in my life, because even still, once again, coming from a conservative background, there's a lot of things that we're told in society, especially as women, that we shouldn't say, that we don't discuss, just keep it to yourself, and everything will be fine so long as you're pleasant and you don't broach certain topics. And I felt very empowered for the first time in my life to say, no, I'm not going to take that. That's not the path for me. My path is to be open and honest and to let people know and connect and build a community around that idea. So that evolved into me founding UnSugarCoated Media. And through that organization, we have done documentaries, we've done events, we've actually acquired some IP for documentaries and film projects that are there. And then we have, we have a podcast that we produce as well from time to time. It's a seasonal podcast. It's produced in Burbank. And it's just been, it is, like you said, these are all critical issues. To me, when I took that journey on, it was because I am a humanitarian at heart. I am, not to sound woo-woo, but I mean, I am an empathic person. I don't know why. I kind of, sometimes I wish I wasn't so, because you feel things as if it's happening to you when you hear of someone else's suffering. So much so, because my kids, if they tell me, "Oh, mom, I fell and I hurt," and they try to describe it, I'm like, stop, because whatever you're describing is starting to hurt me. It's kind of silly, but it's like, no, please, I don't want to hear. And so Unsugar Coated just became a way to also, like I said, not only create projects that we're passionate about, support other artists that are doing the same, but build a community that says it's okay to talk about these subjects, and not just talk about them, but try to actually create real solutions. The reality is that that's very hard to do, especially now, but we keep trying. So an example of that is in October. We launched this before the pandemic, but we were able to bring it back this year in October of 2023. We revived a once a year event that we host called EmpowerCon. It was held at the Los Angeles Convention Center. We bring amazing people on that stage, all with the goal, and we bring people from city government, right, to talk about the social economics. We bring people that are executives in the world, people that are leaders, and then people that are just passionate about being an example to others on these social issues. So it's a combination of talks, panels, interactive, workshops. And it's always a blessing when people come up to me afterwards and say, that really helped me. I mean, last time, months later, people will come up to me and say, I'm still benefiting from that day. So we do hope to continue. I've been invited to bring EmpowerCon to London, and I do bring a lot of people in the industry. So last time we had the co-founder of E Entertainment, Larry Namer, who's a very good friend of ours and supporter. We had one of the executives from Nickelodeon come on, an executive producer from Dora the Explorer, the film. We're able to bring in some really incredible people from our industry and have them speak to these social issues, because, as media is such a powerful forum. It's such a powerful medium to connect with people. So yeah,
it really is. I mean, it's pretty incredible. Even just doing podcasts, this, and I came from, I'm a little older than you are. Well, because I have kids that are launched, but this was not possible at all. And going through school, and even some of the technology I use now was, it's just not available at all. So it's wonderful to be able to do that. So, well, this kind of, because I know how powerful that media is. I think it's just amazing. When you watch something, especially a documentary or anything like that, it has the power to move the heart. And that's what media does. It can move the heart. Music can do the same thing. It just can move the heart. So I think that's, something that's very, very powerful. I really wanted to approach this because it's so big right now. Because here we've gone through the strikes too, with the actor strikes and everything, and especially dealing with AI. It's how has that affected some of the legal aspects of your work? Because it is incredibly powerful. And as a creator, as an artist, it's fun to be able to use some of those tools. So, but how can we as creators use this effectively? And how does that affect even some of your work?
Yeah, no, I love that. And I love that we're talking about it, because there's obviously pros and cons, right? You can't have the good without the bad.
No.
AI is a very contentious subject, depending on who you're talking to.
Yes.
I just read an article the other day from some of the godfathers that they're saying, hey, X amount of chance that humanity is going to be done with because of AI. Nobody wants to read these kind of things.
Yeah, no.
But it's very true that AI is not going anywhere.
No, and, it's here.
It's here to stay, no differently than the car was when people were only on horses, or when people started using computers as opposed to paper and pen, right? Or calculators instead of abacuses. It's something that we are going to find ourselves relying on and utilizing more. And one thing more I want to say, not only does media create a feeling, it creates different perspectives, which I think in a world that's really trying to bring us closer together, to be able to put on a different lens. Media holds so much power that way. And to your point, makes you feel something that you might not have otherwise. So with regards to the legal, so it's very interesting because the strike was funny to us because, for say, I can tell you that the only people that could really negotiate what was going in and out of their contract with regards to AI were like your higher caliber, your A-listers, who they have the attorneys who can say, no, take that out. We're not gonna deal with that. But much of talent for the last several years have been signing contracts that includes, to a certain extent, this AI language. So for us, it was, kind of not amusing, not at all this, but it was kind of like, hey guys, this has actually been in there. But as this understanding of AI, or even fear of AI, has blossomed, then yes, you had a lot more people that wanted more control. They wanted things to be, very exact. And that, as a result of that disconnect on what that meant, as our industry was shut down for several months. And it was in some ways worse than the pandemic because you couldn't even approach talent to say, at least during, example, during the pandemic, right? You had a script. I have a script. You're Deborah, will you read my script? And hey, when things get back to normal, we can get back to acting. Great. Couldn't even do that during the strike, right? You had to, it was all pencils down. And, so it's great that people have become more educated on it. So that they're aware of what to look out for and what to avoid, which is what I would say is using your likeness and image without your consent in perpetuity. But from an IP perspective with regards to AI, I think it's incredibly important for people to recognize it's a great tool, but it is not intellectual property if I plug a story idea into ChatGPT and say, please write the story for me. And you're going to run into problems going and trying to copyright that. Because the whole purpose of IP is saying it came from me. It came from my soul. It came from something that inspired me. So I think that it's very important that people be careful and understand, especially if they don't want to jeopardize the IP that they're creating. I've seen some people like, oh, I wrote 6 books in a matter of 2 months because I just have AI writing it for me. And I'm like, okay, but you're not actually writing it. And that means none of that can be copyrighted,
and the quality.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. Well, because it's different. It's not, that's the thing. That's what makes us humans and humanity, our touch, our tone. And why would you want something else being your voice?
I know.
Some people like it. I know some people, they're like, well, my English isn't so good. So when it writes it, it sounds so good. But, but your voice is your voice. And if I give my voice away, then it's no longer my voice. And already with film, and I say this specifically more speaking to scripts, you're already going to give it to somebody and they're going to change it.
Oh, of course. Yes.
Or like if you write a book and say, okay, let's adapt it into a screenplay. It's every screenplay writer will tell the author, if they're not the ones doing it themselves, beware, this is going to change. So don't get your feelings hurt. But, I think that it's incredibly important as a novelist. Like when I wrote my books, people were like, so did you have a ghostwriter? And I'm like, offended. I'm like, no. No offense to the ghostwriters out there. But I wrote this. This is from my heart. This is from my mind. And sure, you can utilize AI to touch up. I think it's great for copy editing,
Definitely, it's good for that. Yes. But you still have to edit.
Yes. And you still have to proofread everything. Shoot, for goodness sakes, ChatGPT still makes mistakes.
Yes, it does.
All the time, funny enough. It does make, I remember when we first started, my team, I showed them, I said, look, ChatGPT messes up. And they were like, oh, shocked. I'm like, yes. So don't think that you can rely on this 100% as infallible. They say with editing, you want at least 3 to 5 people to go over the work before you finally go to print for anything, because there's always an error still hiding in there, but going back to what it does, it does feel that we have to be more, questions come our way. For example, even for audiobooks, some people that were uploading on Spotify and they didn't realize that by doing so, there's new terms and conditions that now they can take just your story and do whatever. They can make a movie with it. They can make sequels from it, and you are not entitled to any of the compensation, which is something that I just think people really need to be, especially for novelists who want to go put their audiobooks on Spotify. So our work is just transitioned and trying to educate and get people aware, and definitely encourage people to be smart about the way they create and protect their content.
Great advice. And this, again, it takes doing your homework.
Yeah.
You have to do your homework. There are no shortcuts in that. When you want somebody else just to do this or take over this, it's how I talk about tech sometimes too, technology. You have to spend enough time you have to waste enough time in it and figure it out. It's exactly what it's all about. The work doesn't stop. And if you want to be in this field, it's moving fast. You don't have to know everything there is, but you need to be well educated. And I think the copyright is very, very important, and the intellectual property, all of that in using AI. And, I found out definitely, because I play around with the chat GPT, mostly in putting my content in and wanting it to just, rephrase it, it gives me some ideas, some other words. So I'm not, always looking up on a thesaurus. So it's giving me some of those, and I take a little bit and I, leave a little bit, but it gives you ideas that way. And that's fine. But boy, it makes mistakes. And it's made mistakes too, even on book summaries. It's like, really? That's not what that book is about. Yeah. So you really just have to do your homework on that. And there's not a lot of shortcuts to be able to do. So
those shortcuts usually come back to haunt you, by the way,
Yes. Really, really good advice. I love on that same one. Well, now you wrote a book. I want to kind of get because I think you've now answered that question on how the law firm is working with your nonprofit, and you're kind of working together a little bit. You can expand on that a little bit more too, but also about this book called Tough Love, and you've struggled too with cancer. And so, and you seem to be sharing this pretty openly, in your book. And so I'd love you to talk about that here and how that led to a book and some of the things that are in Tough Love, because basically you wanted to save your life through that. And you had to make some tough decisions with the Tough Love. So why don't you talk about that just a little bit?
Oh, thank you so much. And I appreciate that. And yes, I absolutely, that was that empowering moment of writing Tough Love. That was the first time people said, "Oh, did it feel cathartic?" And I said, no, I was already healed. That's actually the good thing about writing from a place of healing and wanting to help others, because what had happened. So yes, I'm a 3-time cancer survivor. And I lived through that. I actually still live with several health issues to this day. I have, shout out to all my autoimmune chronic illness. I have 2 autoimmune diseases, fibromyalgia, a condition called POTS, which Bethany Frankel kind of made a little bit pseudo popular recently because she was diagnosed with it. And then I have, and then I have life, right? So then when I go into the doctor's office, they're like, "So do you have any stress?" I'm like, "I have a pulse." So I do. You're not? Because if you are, so anyway, so Tough Love though. So I had been in a marriage before, and I don't regret my marriage. I want to make that, I don't regret my marriage, but I also did come to a point when I had to choose between my health and what was best for me. And once again, kind of going back to, I never wanted to get married, to get divorced. I was, my grandparents were married for, till they both passed, and they loved each other so much. And they were such an amazing role model for what life with a true partner looks like. And I loved being in love. I loved being married. But unfortunately, my ex-husband and I were not compatible for a long-term relationship. And there became things like domestic violence and mental and, physical, not just this abuse, because we were not in, what is that? We were not compatible, but I'm thinking of a word, simpatico.
It came to you.
So I got divorced. And so many people had looked up to me, what I had gone through. They knew I had been through a divorce. I hadn't really shared much about it, but as I started to get messages from people that said, wow, you know what? You give me inspiration. You have helped me through difficult times. Now, I'm very grateful and humbled when people say that, but I was also aware they didn't even have half the story. So that was a moment where I decided, because also, and I'm sure you're going to understand this when I say this, so many people have heard my life. And Deborah, they're like, you should write a book. And I'm like, okay, well, where do I start? Because I don't even know where to start. And a lot of people, I say this for people who have this discussion in their head about, I should write a book about my life, but I don't know where to start. For me, it was taking one piece and starting with one message. And my message for tough love was that sometimes, I grew up with a family that said tough love is doing things you don't always want to do, but you have to do them. So again, I loved being unloved. I didn't want my children to have to go through a divorce. I didn't want any of those things. But I ended up, and yes, it came on the heels of me getting a phone call from the doctor that said, you're going to be dealing with this again. And I absolutely refused to not only fight for my life, but then have to fight for a marriage where I was really the only one trying. And so the book became a message that it is okay to let go. It is okay to dream. And for a lot of women, they can't imagine themselves without their partner, but they don't understand that that's the only ending of one thing. And it's the beginning of a whole new entire opportunity in your life. And so I really wanted to champion that message. And so the book is a biographical novel. So there are things that are, massaged in a fictional way for my own privacy. But, all the conversations in the book are real. All the occurrences in the book are actually real. And I'm very proud of that people around the world have read that novel. I've visited with fans from around the world and readers. I've had people, what I love about it is I've had people connect with the character who was my teenage daughter at the time, right? I met one reader who said, your story made me understand my mother more, and as well as getting another message from a woman who said, because of reading your story, I'm filing for divorce from an abusive husband, So, and I don't take credit, but I'm glad to be a conduit to have shared my story, and I encourage other people to share theirs as well, if they feel so, because you just don't know who your story can help and the different ways that it can land on people's hearts, So, yeah.
That's great. That's great. And you kind of did this with, and the start of your nonprofit as well. So this kind of came together because you're an author and you've written another book as well. And this is not just about books, but I really wanted to I talk about stories. And so, I have heard that a lot as well from people. Oh, I should write a book. Or, this is another one. Yeah, they tell me like 3 years ago, oh yeah, I've started writing my book. I said, well, where are you? Well, I'm getting to it. Well, I'm getting to it. Well, it's like,
yes,
it's like the music album that never happens because it's never good enough. So it's just, you have launched it.
And what do you think was usually, because I would be curious your thoughts. I know what I would say. There's usually a couple reasons why people don't, and what do you find it to be when they haven't?
Well, if they don't finish, a lot of times it can be because of perfectionism. Yep. It's just not quite there. What you have to be able to let it go, Yeah. And the starting it's an emotional thing of just starting. It's why people never, start working out, or they start and then they just quit. They've not developed a routine. And you really, if you're going to be a writer, if you're going to be in the creative field, I talk about this a lot. You've got to have some sort of a routine. Sure, it's creative arts. It's creation. How fun. But you got to have a routine if you're going to finish things. And so I think that's a lot of it. And, you got to just put your timeline, and the timelines change all the time. Yes. But they do, but you've got to let it go, and I've written musicals. So talk about when you put on directors, they call it killing your babies. Okay. This song doesn't fit. what do you mean? It's such a great song. I love it, that sort of thing. So, but it's just, that is the way it is. And then, of course, editors too, they'll slash things up in your, but you want it to speak the best. And so part of that is letting go, all of that.
I
so I
agree,
think there's a lot to that as an artist. And
but you hit on two that are so, and I agree with you 1000%. You have to plan to do it. You have to plan. And then secondly, this pursuit of perfection, that sometimes keeps people so, it delays them from really, it doesn't have to be perfect. Every single one of my novels that has actually been released, despite having editors, has always had a typo in it, right? And
I know. Doesn't that kill you when you read it back? You go, no.
And I mean, I paid my editors good money, and both of them were like, no, there's always first draft has an error. And I'm like, but that's your job to prevent that. But anyways, this pursuit of perfection, it holds people back from their own greatness and truly. And and then thirdly, like you said, sometimes the emotion, I understand, like writing Tough Love was an emotional pull at certain parts, obviously, because you're reliving things in your life. But that is still, I mean, that's the beauty of what you're doing. You're also creating something for someone else to have an experience through you. So I agree. I was just curious what you said, and I love it because you were so spot on. Perfect.
Yeah, well, I kind of lived through it, so still live through it. So I keep saying I'm never going to retire until my kids put me in the home. So I'll just, keep living through it. So, well, this has been just such a delight. I would love you to give maybe some of your contact information, but also I want you to leave our audience with at least one takeaway. It's hard to come up with one takeaway, but what would you tell people if they were to act on some of that? I can think of a couple things we've already talked about today that people should act on. But I would like that coming from you in, a couple things, what people should do if they're listening to this. What action can they take from just, besides being inspired and wanting to read your book and all of that? What takeaway would you say?
I mean, I think one of my favorite takeaways for anybody is to not let the ideas or opinions of others to stop you. If you really, truly have a dream, the first action item is to, I say this when someone tells you, if you share an idea with somebody and they say, well, that's, you can't do that. Yeah. I always tell that person, make sure you understand that person has just showed you their limitations. They have not shown you yours. We are incredible human beings with such capacity, such resiliency, such just everything. We're very unique in the ways that we do things, but it does take for you have to be the one to not let other people's feelings about it get in the way. I would say it's not about who's letting me in. It's about who's keeping me out. Like who's going to try and keep me out. I think I actually said that wrong. Sorry. It's not about who's letting me in. It is about who thinks they're keeping me out. I think I just said that twice. Yeah, but it's nobody's keeping me out. Mm-hmm. If I have an idea, and when we talk about starting a business, as we said from the beginning, it was always because I was not going to let other people dictate my own future. So how do you do that? You grow. If you don't have the information, you said something so key earlier, if you don't know the information, have someone in your circle that does. Reach out. LinkedIn is a great place to connect with me. I always tell people in my professional world, connect with me on LinkedIn, but don't forget to, and I want to underscore, LinkedIn is one of the most powerful professional networking, if not the most at this moment in time for people out there. You can easily find and connect with people and just ask for their input, ask for their advice. You don't need to be afraid. And if they say no, or they don't answer you, who cares? Yeah. I remember one time reading a statistic about if I died tomorrow, half the people I know may come to my funeral. If it was raining, half of that.
Yes, of course.
So who am I worried about offending? Yes. What is a no going to do to me other than just make me say, okay, on to the next.
Right.
So you do not give up. Back to that. You fight for those resources that are readily available to you in this day. And that's what makes LinkedIn so powerful. When could you just somehow connect with an executive or a script writer by just plugging it into LinkedIn so easily? Right. Never, but we can. So utilize those tools, utilize those resources, and just continue doing whatever you're doing. You have to fight for what you want in this life. That is true, because nobody's coming to give it to us necessarily. So
I love that.
Yeah,
fight for what you want. Yes,
absolutely.
That's a great sort of ending to that. And so I will make sure those links are in the show notes with not only your websites, but your LinkedIn. That's another place that people can get a hold of you and connect with you. And I do a lot of little things through LinkedIn too, articles and newsletters and all of that. And so it's just a great place and great resources. It's totally free unless you're going to, bump up your account. Everything has a place to bump things up now. So
right. I've never bumped it up, but and we get pitched, and a lot of people come to us to pitch their films on it. A lot of them,
Yeah,
So.
That's great. That is so great. So it has been an absolute pleasure to meet you. I get to meet so many people through these podcasts, and we're both on the West Coast, which is really fun too, because it's nice that we're able to coordinate the time to do this. So thank you all for listening to, and I've got it now, Alia. I love that. That's beautiful, beautiful, beautiful name, beautiful person, and you have overcome a lot in your life. And how fun. My mother had fibromyalgia and struggled years and years, and just, it was a tough thing. So my heart goes out to you, and that you are persevering. So you're not
absolutely
raising those kids. So, and thank you all for listening all the way through with us. Make sure that you retrieve the articles. Some of these podcasts I write articles specifically for, but there's an article that comes out every single week, and I at least do. And also the newsletter, and all of these, I promote them through my newsletters. I don't spam you. It's not a big sales tool. I give away a lot of stuff, and I have a lot of content to give away. So it's such a pleasure. goalsforyourlife.com/newsletter. Deborah Johnson speaker, of course, and DJ Works Music. That's the one I've had forever, a website too. So thank you again, everyone, for joining us. And thank you, Alia, for joining me today. It's an absolute pleasure. So bye-bye for now.
Thank you for joining us. It is because of our wonderful listeners like you that we keep going strong week after week. We'd love it if you'd share and follow us to not miss a single show, and even write a review. You can also find all of our articles, products, and links at womenathalftime.com.